The traditional school is usually looking at content completion. I have to teach so much. I just finish teaching that and I move out. There's nothing wrong with the curriculum that is being offered. It's the way it's being taught that makes the difference.
I'm going to just push you to give me the ideal kind of child for each board. Like,
Oh.
because see, it's not a matter of they're not becoming their best selves. No, it's that the competition of this economic ladder that you have to climb. In that, my child is failing.
Kids are kids anywhere in the world. What they need is the right environment, the right opportunities, and you will find kids just run with it.
Mudda is right that the parents really don't think if they let their kids be that the kids will be good people. Hi everyone, welcome to CBFE. I am in Gurgaon. I almost said, Gurugram. I am sitting here in this school called Kunskapsskolan. This spelling you probably need to read to understand what I just said if you haven't heard of this school. But I'm sitting here with the CEO of the Kunskapsskolan group of schools in India. It's an Indian and Swedish school, and Suni ma'am is the best teacher I never had. The time when I was supposed to join the school that she was teaching in, where my mom also used to teach in Ambala, they decided to not take boys anymore. So I went to army school and not convent of Jesus and Mary in Ambala. So Suni ma'am has been an educator for over 30 years, and now this brilliant school, which you'll be seeing a lot of in this video, is all her baby. I'm so glad that we met after so many years, ma'am.
I know, it was so nice to hear you. When I got that call, I was so excited actually. I was like, oh, that was really unexpected to get a call from you. But it felt really good.
And talk to me about how this Kunskapsskolan thing happened.
I didn't want to be a teacher any longer. I'd been a teacher for about 15 years by that time, and I said, okay, I need to do something different. So that's when I moved into Educomp and took up teacher empowerment and training. So that was about a stint of about 4 years. And then Kunskapsskolan was just setting up their school in Gurgaon. The very idea seemed very interesting, right? The idea of personalizing learning, the idea of giving children a chance to make decisions, goal setting. I think I just got the entire understanding of what do you mean by personalizing learning. The other thing that was fantastic was watching children there, because they were on task. Even if a teacher was not present, kids were studying. I was thinking about our schools. If a teacher is not present, the volumes in the classroom, like it's crazy volumes, right?
Yeah.
And then you go in there and you're seeing these kids, they're working.
They're working,
right?
yeah.
And for me, that was very exciting to see. And I said, oh, if, working with personalized education can lead to children becoming more responsible for their own learning, then that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And when I was there, my question was always, will our Indian children do that, right? Because culturally we are used to being told what to do. So suddenly my question was, if our kids are given that, will that happen or will that be a total mess? And 1.5 months into this school, I saw the answer, I got the answer. Kids are kids anywhere in the world. What they need is the right environment, the right opportunities, and you will find kids just run with it. They just need the right support to be able to do that. So getting kids to really understand, that they have a choice and a voice. I keep using that word. Choice and voice, right? Can I express what I want, and will I be given the choice to go with that? How much it empowers children, right? Gives them a sense of responsibility, gets a sense of ownership of learning. I think those are not things that are very easy to give, but once given, I think kids can really flourish. We keep taking examples, right, of children sitting down with video games.
Yeah.
They can spend hours and hours on it.
Yeah. Tab to attention span nahi kam hota.
Nothing, right? But why? Because they're engaged. It's something that they enjoy doing, and something that gives them a sense of accomplishment. Why can't we give that in school?
Looking back at, say, your time at CJM and then now this new pedagogy, right? What is the difference?
If I want to put it in very broad heads, when you look at a traditional school is usually looking at content completion, what we talk about as syllabus.
Yeah.
I have to teach so much, I just finish teaching that and I move out. And I keep telling everybody, teaching is not equal to learning. I can teach as much as I want. Doesn't mean that you will learn it. But if a student is coming here, the student is not coming to be taught. He's coming here to learn. That's a big difference, right? So the moment you say, I am here to ensure that students learn, I am not here to ensure that I finish my syllabus, the whole game changes. Because then I say, okay, if Shiv needs to learn, what does Shiv need? If somebody else needs to learn, what does that somebody need? Because what you need to learn and what that somebody else needs to learn is going to be different.
Yeah, personalization kind of just gets baked into it. Yeah.
Automatically, right? Because each one of us is different. Everybody says that, but nobody is catering for it.
Interesting, maybe there's a name change required, no? Like it's not a teacher anymore. Maybe the name is like a learning empowerer or
We use the word facilitator.
facilitator.
Right? That's the word that we use because you're facilitating learning. That is one major difference. The other is very few schools talk about skills that need to be learned. I'm not talking about content anymore. I'm talking about what are the skills that you as a learner need to have to be able to be successful. Right? So therefore, you need to learn how to problem solve. You need to learn how to collaborate. You need to how to communicate. You need to be able to
Grit and
perseverance. You need to be creative. You need to be a critical thinker. There are so many skills that you need, right? Even when you're looking at subjects that need to be learned. If I'm looking at math, right, I need to be able to compute. I need to be able to problem solve. If I'm looking at science, I need to be observe, predict. There are so many skills that come with the subject itself.
And has nothing to do with the content.
And nothing to do with the content, right? Comprehending a poem is a skill, right? Because I'm talking about comprehension. So if I read a poem, right, I should be able to understand what's the implicit meaning. What is the poet trying to convey through his choice of words? What is the mood of the poem? What is the setting of the poem? It's not about the poem anymore. If the skill is comprehension, then I should be able to comprehend anything. I was talking about this room and the description of this room. If you described it and if somebody else described it, the answer would be different. It cannot be the same. But does the room change? No. But your answers are changing. Does it make one right and the other wrong? No.
Yeah, actually, I remember doing this exercise once in school, I think, in some summer vacation. So me and my cousin, both of us, I think my mommy gave us the same picture to describe. And my cousin, her focus was on the description of physical things. So like, there are 8 people standing, they're all dancing, they have hands in the air, there are trees in the background. She described those things. My entire focus was on emotion.
Right.
Like it looks like a very peaceful, joyful scene. I was talking about the emotional layer of it, right?
But it's the same picture, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is where, because if I have to do a descriptive paragraph, the skills that I need to do is how do I describe? What are the adjectives I can use, right? That is what is going to be the crux of the skill that I need to give a child.
If I get stuck, I don't get it, how do I find meaning?
How do I find meaning? What's the flow that I do? How do I put a paragraph together, right? How do I frame a sentence that expresses what I want to say? Those are the skills that you need to give to the child, but not give standard content and say everybody learns the same answer. And that's the difference, I think, between a traditional school and a school that's looking at a more progressive approach to learning. For us, I think the difference is completely in the way that we look at personalizing learning. And by that, I say our children set their own goals. So right from the time that they are even nursery, they get introduced to the idea of what a goal is. Now, they may not use the words of goals and strategies, but they understand that they have a choice. We begin the day every morning with what we call as a base group session. Okay, so our kids sit down on a carpet and we talk about what did you learn yesterday, how did you learn that, and then we give them a plan for the day. Now, the plan of the day says, okay, these are the kind of activities that we are going to do, but while we are doing the activities, a question that we ask them is to, What skill do you think you're going to develop by doing that activity? So you will find a girl or a boy who's 4 years or 5 years old will be telling you that I'm going to building my language skill, or I'm going to build my fine motor skill, or I'm going to build my cognitive skill.
So interesting you made that explicit, huh? So they're calling their own skills by name.
By name. So they know what skills they are developing. After we finish the activity, then the question is, were you able to achieve it? And how were you able to achieve it? So you automatically have brought two things into play, goal and strategy, without using those words. So it's not about whether you achieved it or not. The process of arriving, I think, is more interesting and more valuable than having arrived at a place. We end the day with what we call as a reflection. Every child sits down for about 10 minutes and they write down what the day was like. It's guided by the question of the teacher. So she may one day ask you, what made you happiest today? Or it may be a question about, what did you learn today? Or what do you think you could have done differently today? Or what do you want to change for tomorrow? So it could be any question, but the idea is to get kids to say, it's an ongoing journey. I may not succeed today, but I will succeed in the near future. And that is a message that we want all our kids to get. You don't fail. You've attempted something. Today you were not able to do it. Tomorrow you will be able to do it. I think words make a lot of difference, Shiv. When you say you're a failure, you've actually put that person's
identity
into that, right? You've also made that person question himself. It's just one blip in your journey. Learning is something that is ongoing. We definitely say you need to work hard. You cannot succeed if you don't put in time, effort, perseverance. Without that, success is not going to happen. Nothing is going to be handed to you on a platter.
I think a lot of the personalization ideas that you mentioned are also very doable at home, I think parents can really learn from this kind of stuff. Okay, what are the questions you're asking your child? Are you asking him, second line kya thi poem ki? Or what do you like about poetry? Did you understand this poem? Are you going to read more? Why not? Why yes? The stuff of comprehension. And then the whole reflectiveness thing. I love the idea of the start and end of day.
That's for the early years. I think for the senior grades, it's slightly different because they have what we call as personal coaching. And that is, I think, brilliant because, you get 15 minutes every week with your teacher, one-on-one. And you just sit down and you talk about what were my goals for the week? Did I achieve it or not? What did I struggle with? What was I successful at? Do I need to change the way I'm learning? And then say, okay, next week my goals are going to be this. So it's a week on week. Now, besides the fact that you're talking about your own learning and what needs to be done, what it also allows is great rapport building between the teacher and the student. I mean, so how many of us ever got a chance to sit down and talk to our teacher? And sometimes they bring up things which impact education or their learning, but which has got nothing to do with learning itself. Sometimes it's a fight with a friend, best friend. So when you set goals, we ask them, of course, to do set academic goals. But we also look for personal goals. So sometimes it may be a goal to be able to manage time better. Sometimes it may be a goal to be able to resolve a conflict that is happening with their best friend. It could be anything.
Which is
right?
like, I couldn't study because I've been having this horrible
fight with my best
that
friend,
makes sense.
right?
That's what happens at this age.
At this age. So then to be able to talk to an adult who's there to give you a listening ear and probably giving you some guidance if you need it. And I think that's our biggest challenge, and let me tell you. Because as adults, we are ready to give solutions.
Yeah, let me fix it.
Let me fix it for you, right? And I think it's very difficult for us, and this is one of the things that we work with our teachers a great deal, saying that when you're in a coaching session, your responsibility is to listen.
Yeah.
Your responsibility is to guide, but not give answers and solutions, because you want children to come with solutions or come with at least an idea of how they would like to work things through. And then you can, of course, give additional suggestions, but you want them to be able to do that.
It's like I think a lot of the issues of restrictive parenting or helicopter parenting, right? Like the main mudda is, right, that the parents really don't think if they let their kids be, that the kids will be good people. You know, like I think that's where it's really coming from. Okay, if I let my child be, all they'll do is play video games, right? They'll never want to study. They'll never want to make something of themselves. And you know, like there's very strange pressures in that sense. Like this requires so much trust.
But I think it starts right from a very young age, right? In a way, you're training children in that direction, right? Yes, children love to play, but even when they're playing, they're actually learning, right? They're highly curious. They want to know a lot of things. There's a lot of why about everything under the sun, right?
Yeah.
Why, till it drives parents up the wall. Why are they asking those questions? Because they want to know. They want to learn. That's the innate nature, right, of a human being, is to want to know, want to learn. What chaps their happiness, if I might say so, is the way they are taught. So if classroom is engaging, if classroom is fun, if there is a lot of joy in exploring and that sense of accomplishment that comes with having achieved something, if you can give that to a child, why will they stop?
Yeah.
And therefore, as a parent, I will say, spend time with your kids just trying to understand who they are.
You were saying something very nice earlier. I think we should talk about that. The only thing that the kids these days don't have is time with their parents.
I find that as something that I see a lot in common, because today, let's be frank, most parents are, both parents are working. They have very high expectations from their work spaces, so they devote a lot of their time and energy towards their jobs because they want to be successful and they want to provide for their families.
Yeah.
But what happens at the end is that a child actually needs you
There.
as a parent, right? Needs your presence, needs your support, needs your listening ear, needs to know that in case they goof up, there's a parent who's there to kind of just grab hold of them and say, it's okay, let's carry on. I think that is what I feel is missing to a large extent. And therefore you overcompensate. And the overcompensation that is happening is either in splurging on things that kids actually don't need, or you are kind of removing all your boundaries. There is no more restriction, there is, it becomes a free-for-all that happens. And that is not good for a child. I think it's very important that children need to have boundaries. They need to understand what is it that they are allowed. So I keep talking about negotiables and non-negotiables. Where is it that I can say, okay, this is okay, and this is absolutely a no-go. You're just not going to be allowed. But at the same time, they need to be given freedom too. And that balance is not so easy to maintain.
What do you do? I feel for the parents also, because I live in Bombay, and the kind of rents that we are paying, it's hard already,
Yeah.
And we are working 12 hours a day,
Yeah.
and then most of our money is basically going in rent,
Okay.
So I'm just wondering what can these parents do? Like the whole contract of this marriage is that, listen, like if we want to have this life, we have to both earn.
Agreed.
So what do you suggest we should do?
I think for even 15 minutes a day, put aside your phone and look at your child and talk to your child for those 15 minutes.
Kunskapsskolan is maybe an expensive school, right? And a lot of parents will look at this video and be like, oh my God, I wish I could send my kid here. I'm, for the first time in my life, thinking maybe my kid needs to go to school because I'm a homeschooling kind of, I'm looking forward to that idea. So, it's very difficult in a world where it's actually very expensive to live, to get the good things like this school.
Right.
I do feel for the parents, like I don't think they're wrong in these things, to want the good things for their kids and to want the good things for themselves, to just survive. So I don't know, in this context, how do they not pressurize? You know what I mean? How do you break out of this? How do they redefine success in this case?
I don't think there's anything wrong in wanting the best for your child.
Yeah.
Right? You definitely want the best for yourself, you want the best for your child. But at the same time, I think we also need to understand what is your child capable of. Where does the pressure come? The pressure comes when you have unrealistic expectations. So you need to have realistic expectations of your child. If your child really loves reading and studying and wanting to pursue higher education and wanting to spend hours doing research, absolutely yes, give that to your child, right? But if you have a child who says, this is not my cup of tea. I can't think of sitting and, spending hours and hours poring over pages. I'd rather be a drummer or a artist or a dancer or a whatever it is.
And then if it doesn't put food on the table, so be it.
I don't think
I'm trying to bring you back to the
you bring me back
bottom of the spectrum.
Yeah, bottom of the
Because this
spectrum.
again is self-actualization, identity, who I am. I'm talking about parents think their kids will die on the streets if they don't do what they're telling. I'm serious. I'm telling you the narratives that parents are coming to. You must be hearing this every day. My child is getting left behind. It's not a matter of they're not becoming who they are, their best selves. No, it's that the competition of this economic ladder that you have to climb. In that, my child is failing.
I hear you. I don't know whether I completely agree with you on that, Shiv. I think what happens is that today, especially when you see the way the economy is growing and job opportunities and the variety of, possibilities that are there, from a career point of view, that is there available. I still believe our children are not completely exposed to that. So there is this, fixed set of 8, 10, 20, job opportunities that you are looking at, whereas there is so much more that is there out in the market.
Yeah.
So you need the kids to understand that if not this, there is another option that is available to you.
And the parents to understand that.
And the parents to understand that. You also need to say, today when we're looking at so many startups that are coming, people who have the right skill sets can actually can do brilliant things if they kind of find a problem that they can solve, right? Through their startups or through, just being innovators in their spaces. And there are plenty that are doing that. I think the definition of having the swankiest car or the biggest, apartment, that I think is where we need to change the narrative, right?
Yeah.
That is not success, right? For me, at least, it isn't.
Yeah, what is
right?
success for you?
For me, I think it is about being able to do something that you absolutely want to do and are good at, and which can make an impact. I think for me, that is success, right? Today, if I am where I am today and I'm enjoying what I am doing today, it's because of that. I had the skill sets. I am a good communicator. I think I was a pretty decent teacher. Today, I am able to make a difference because I'm able to help teachers teach better. I'm able to provide an environment where children are learning and enjoying coming to school. So I am making that impact. So for me, those were the things that makes me feel I've been successful at what I'm doing.
Right. I think the very important thing you said is, if you are feeling like you're stuck in a very straight line race to the finish, if I don't get there, I will not succeed. In fact, I might starve. Then the problem is not that you're failing at this race. It's just that you've completely forgotten about the rest of the world that is out there. Yeah. The possibilities that you really don't need to run this, and there is also a million ways other than this to also succeed. Yeah.
Because you always hear of people who have been in a journey for 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, and then suddenly say, no, this is no longer what I want to do, and change path completely and still be successful, right? And that comes from the skills that you have honed over a period of time. You need to be aware of what you can
bring to the table.
To the table. What are you good at? What are the skills that you have? What's the knowledge that you have? How do you want to contribute, right? And then say, okay, fine, this is something that I can do. Why can't there be opportunities? And if there are none, can you create one for yourself?
Yeah.
I know it sounds very utopian, and I can understand a lot of people who listen to me will say, okay, that's very easy to say, but it's difficult to do.
Yeah.
Right? But I think anything that you want, if you have to really make the effort for it, you have to struggle, you have to go through that.
You have to get through that phase, yeah. Do you have devices in the school?
Yes.
You have allowed
From grade 3 onwards, our kids bring in their devices. They all have tablets.
They have tablets.
So we've got what's known as a learning portal. Okay. So our entire curriculum is on that learning portal. And so everything from what the child needs to learn to how they will be assessed and their assessments are all there on the portal. So structurally, we have teaching sessions that happen. And then we have about an hour to hour and a half every day, which we call as workshop time.
Okay.
Now, that's a time for the child to use in a manner to be able to achieve the goals he set for himself for the week.
Okay.
Right?
And so it's free to set
Free to
your
set.
own
So,
goals
but
for.
free to set in the sense because every Monday they need to submit to the teacher
A plan for workshop.
a plan for the workshop.
Okay.
How are they going to use that time? So if I have got 45 minutes, the child can say, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on the math workshop and then balance of time in the science workshop.
Yeah.
What are you going to do there? Okay, I'm going to be doing this and I'm going to be doing this. It's written down and noted in a book we call as the logbook. When they go to the workshop, the teacher will look at that and say, okay, this is what you're supposed to be doing. I hope you're on task. So she does not going to question them, but she will walk around and she will do a
Just
spot check.
hold you to it.
Just hold you to it so that at least the child knows, okay, it's
accountable.
why, I'm accountable for it. And I think we say the freedom of choice is given to you if you show responsibility. If you are not responsible, then we will withdraw that choice till you show that you are responsible. Because at the end, you are here to learn. So you're not going to be spending your time doing nothing at all and playing all the time. You can't suddenly say, I want to spend the entire day out in the fields. That's not going to happen.
So that's the sort of balance you've struck, right?
Yeah.
Autonomy and restriction ke beech mein.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to bring that balance even at home. For a parent, it's the same thing, right? We grew up with chores. How many of our kids today are given chores to do?
Yeah.
Right? Important for kids to understand that they are a part of the unit, which is a family unit, and everybody pulls their weight.
So coming back to screens though, like I think that I just want to understand, so the tablets are there in class and they have the learning portal.
Yeah.
Do they also have other apps as usual?
No,
Device?
they have the usual apps that are there, but of course we have our firewalls, which then restricts their access to certain things.
Like what have you restricted?
So for example, for the higher grades, YouTube is allowed. For the lower grades, we don't allow YouTube.
Okay, YouTube is allowed. Interesting.
But even there, but then we look at them accessing only certain.
Are you seeing some ill effects of social media and so on in the kids?
I would be very stupid to say that social media has not had an impact on young minds. They have, right? But then I think it's also about how do you educate them in school. So there's a lot of sessions that we do on IT policies, safety, what it means to plagiarize, for example, your digital footprints. You need to talk to them because at this point, if they're not guided, they will put something up which is never going to go off and it's going to impact even their job selection at some point. How many children really understand that whatever they are posting is there for posterity, right?
Do you have suggestions for the parents in this regard? Like, do you tell the parents, like, listen, just don't give them phones until a certain age? Or
No, we don't have the conversation of not giving it, but we do have parenting workshops that happen.
Okay.
But it's also a lot of impact that you see from homes also, right? Because there's so much of device and time spent on devices.
That's where we started.
Home,
like the
right?
parents are on phones. It's not just the kids. Yeah.
I've been in malls where I see a child cry and the parent immediately hands over the phone. Child falls silent. I carry on with my shopping.
It's anesthesia, right?
Right. It's and I keep telling to myself. I said, why do you do that to your child?
And the thing that's the other thing with education. This is a central board for fixing education, right? It's not central board for fixing schools. And education is only half school, right? Or maybe even less.
Yeah.
The rest of the day, you're meeting friends, family, your parents, your siblings, you're traveling. There's so many other things, and all of that you're learning from, right? So you kind of exist within a very complex ecosystem that way. I think a lot of the problems come because you don't really differentiate between just the device or its positive capabilities and what within it can turn bad, right?
Yeah.
That's why I asked you social media first, and then we went into devices, because social media is proven to be a problem, right? It creates excessive pressure, but devices can be a source of great information, empowerment, right?
I think it's about using resources meaningfully to learn, right? So, and it can be a textbook, it can be an encyclopedia, it can be a device, it can be, and there is a
Smart board, whatever.
Smart board, whatever it is, right? There are different things that you can use to learn, and if we are providing opportunities for learning. And if a child who learns better in a particular manner, then I think we need to provide those resources.
And we were talking about stakes, right? Like if you don't understand your kid, if you don't spend that 15 minutes and actually listen and figure out a way for that child to blossom in their own unique way, then the consequences can be pretty dire, right? Like, I mean, this is one of the main motivations for this channel, like the idea that you've got 3 kids committing suicide in this country every day, right? More people have been killed by the education system than all the terrorist organizations combined. You know, brutal fact that we are doing this wrong in some way, that these kids are really not feeling supported.
I think there are very many reasons, Shiv. It's a very sad state that we are in today, where you have young children who feel that they don't have any other choice but to take their lives. And I think education and the way education system is structured to a certain extent plays a part in it. Because if I was to really look at it, there's so much of pressure on children to get those numbers, in their examinations, to be successful, the peer pressure that is there, the parental pressure which is there. They are all contributing factors to where the child feels, I don't have any other choice. This is the only recourse. Right? This is the only recourse that I have. And I think that's really, really sad. I need to be successful. What's the definition of successful?
Yeah.
That itself becomes a big thing. And to a large extent, the person who defines that success is your parents and the society around you.
Yeah.
So therefore, then you are pressurized. You want to be that person. You don't want to be a person who's considered a failure. And therefore, then you push hard, but you're also pushed even harder by the people in your life. Sometimes with all the best intent, right? But at the end, what it leads to is you feeling that you're not good enough. And I think education definitely needs to provide children a sense of accomplishment. And I keep saying that, whether they do something small, something big, it is for them to be constantly made to feel that I'm learning, I am doing, I am on a path. This is a journey. So long as I'm sure that I want to work towards it, and I will work towards it. But putting pressure on them to such an extent leads to them making some really disastrous decisions. Then what you're left with is a sense of, I wish I had, for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the worst situations for any parent to be in. 2 things that a parent can do is, one is understand what your child actually wants, and secondly, to have your channels of communication open. If a child can't walk up to you and say, this is not what I want to do, I want to do something else, and for you to actually listen to that person instead of saying, you're being stupid or you're being silly, or and I think that's what's important, right? You want the children to want to learn. If they don't, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You start with the idea that certain basic knowledge has to be there for every functional person in the world, right? So yes, you will be taught a basic of language, of mathematics, of science, because those are things that I need to be a functional independent human being.
Yeah.
We have what we call as reading corners, because we find our kids are very fond of reading. So therefore we say, okay, this is the task that you have to do, and when you finish it, go and pick up a book to read. Enough reasons for kids to finish quickly and pick up a book of their choice.
Yeah.
So therefore you can actually do that. You can do that at home as parents, wherein you say, okay, fine, let's do this together, or do this and, pick up something that you want to do.
Yeah, there's a beautiful film called The Great Debaters. Have you heard about it?
No, I haven't seen
Denzel
that.
Washington's film.
Okay.
There's a lovely line in that. There's a father talking to his son, and he says, so, son, how do we run this house? And the son says, we do what we have to do. And why do we do what we have to do, son? He says, so that we can do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And do you know what you have to do? He says, yes. Please carry on.
Carry on. Brilliant, actually. I think it's
beautiful little.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? That's what I talk about, negotiables and non-negotiables, right? So if there is a negotiable, go ahead. But if chores have to be done, that's non-negotiable. Get on with it.
And also this, whether or not people will agree, I think the wave of AI is coming. And so a lot of us will be forced out of our straight-jacketed conceptions of work, you know.
When we spoke about, technology and we spoke about phones and computers, I think I got my first mobile device when I was in my 40s, right? I survived for 40 years without it. Today I can't survive without it, right? Because everything that I am doing is linked to my device. Tomorrow you don't know what it's going to be linked to, how technology evolves and things are going to change and what you'll be expected to do. Those who have learned to be adaptive are the ones who are going to be successful.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you about a sort of philosophical question also. There's a lot of people who are talking very passionately about privatization of education. What do you feel about this idea, and how does the school fit in? How does your worldview fit into this idea of public versus private education?
I don't think it's a debate of one versus the other, all right? I think there is space for both. You do need affordable education, because at the end you want every person in your country to
have
be
access,
to be educated enough to make the right choices. When you're looking at public education systems that are there, unfortunately, majority of the time, the quality that you want to come out of that is not there. So private education, yes, has its benefits. It's an expensive proposition. Not everybody can afford it. If you want an educated community, you can't do that unless you get your teachers to be strong enough or qualified enough or comfortable enough to be able to deliver, right?
So this is just my instinctive question, right? Like when there is a lot of fees in a school, when the fee structure is high, does that create a customer and service relationship?
I think overall, if I look at everybody, the conversation is, I need to get my money's worth.
Yeah.
Right? Irrespective of whether I am paying 500 rupees a month or whether I am paying 50,000 rupees a month.
The amount is not important.
The amount is not the important thing. I need to be sure that the school is delivering what they promised.
Which is what I paid for.
So that comes into the context automatically. I understand where the parent is coming from, to the extent of saying, okay, I have entrusted my child and my child's future, in a way, to the school. So therefore, I need to be very sure that they are looking after that, or they've got that at the center of what they are doing. I think the challenge that happens is, like I said, when a parent comes in and thinks that they know better than the educator on how things need to be done, you need to have the conversation with the parent to make them understand why we are doing what we are doing, and ensure that, okay, we know what we are doing, right? As educators, we know why we are doing what we are doing. We know why we are following this particular approach to teaching, learning, and be very assured that it is in the best interest of your child.
Yeah.
Now, that's purely built on trust over a period of time. You cannot have a parent kind of handing over the child to you and say, I trust the school. That's not going to happen. Not anymore. That's my experience.
Most parents are discussing this question really aggressively. It's a lot of the times it's discussion between CBSE and ICSE also. What is your, is there some way is there a cheat sheet to understand these boards?
You'll end up making comparisons, and I hate making comparisons about curriculums, because at the end I feel each curriculum, there's nothing wrong with the curriculum that is being offered. It's the way it's being taught that makes the difference.
I was just going to ask you to compare curriculums, and you just said I don't like comparing curriculums. I get that, but still, I think it's a big question for parents. If they really want to understand, you've got 3 curriculums. So can you help us sort of parse this at least a little bit?
If I was to look at, for example, CBSE. Now, CBSE has always been known for a very structured approach, right? So you have a very standardized testing approach for exams and exams performances, right? So that's the way it is being structured. Therefore, that's the way it is being taught. This is something that we've had a lot of discussions about, like the myth that if I'm doing an international curriculum, I cannot go for competitive exams, or if I have CBSE, I cannot go abroad and study, neither of which is true. But what I've seen is that when you come from a CBSE background and you go abroad, it takes more time to adjust to a very different way of learning, which happens in your foreign universities. That's a challenge that I definitely see with CBSE. If I was to look at Cambridge, Cambridge has certain structures, but it also encourages a lot of inquiry. It encourages a lot of exploration. So therefore, you will find a lot of analysis being encouraged. It's a lot of critical thinking that's encouraged. I was talking about poetry earlier, right? Yeah. So for example, in the case of CBSE, you would read a poem, you would have 10 questions at the end of the poem, and then you would be asked a set of questions to understand whether you know this poem and you are able to answer the questions at the end of the book. If I was to look at it from a Cambridge perspective, on the other hand, you would probably then look at the same poet and say, pull out 2 of his poems, read them, do a compare and contrast, analyze, what you see as similar in the way he has used language, for example, or in the expression, or in the mood he's creating, or how do you see the historical context impacting the way both these poems have happened. Whereas if I was to go to an IB, the same thing, they may ask you to do a complete research paper on it. And you may do an extended essay on it. Now that requires to really read up a lot. So therefore you can see the range of options available. You don't have standardized answers expected. Whereas in the case of a CBSE board exam,
it's prescribed answers.
Is standardized prescribed answers. And therefore the way you teach changes a lot, because you're teaching a child how to crack an examination.
So how do I decide which one?
When the child is very, very young, you probably are doing it more aspirationally, because your child is still very young, formative, you don't know as much about your child's capabilities, aptitudes and interests. So therefore you are largely looking at it from the point of view of, this is where I think I want my child to be. But then as your child grows up and you begin to see what your child actually is as an individual, you then say what best fits my child. So for example, I've got parents who have chosen CBSE, but somewhere around grade 5, grade 6, they come back to us and say, the more I see my child as a person who's more interested in exploration. I see him a person who wants
analytical bone.
Analytical bone is there, or there is a person who doesn't like that structure that is there currently, right, in CBSE. That's my child. So I would like an IB. Now that makes sense.
Got it.
Because then you're looking at it not from an aspiration, but from what fits your child best.
I'm going to just sort of push you to give me the ideal kind of child for each board. So because see, you've said my child is analytical and likes to explore, that kind of works more for IB. What kind of child should go to Cambridge or a CBSE?
I always say Cambridge is somewhere in between.
Okay.
Because Cambridge has its structure, all right, but it's a broader structure. There's more space, elbow room for a child, but there is still a frame within which. But at the same time, the way they assess it, the way they approach learning is a lot more analytical, it's a lot more problem solving, it's a lot more getting children to do a lot more inquiry. So I always...
It's that gradation.
Gradation that I see.
Cambridge is in between.
That's the way I see it. However, if I was to look at the progressive CBSE schools, they are making a lot of integration of exploration, analysis.
Also because of the new NEP, right? You kind of have to go in that direction.
Go in that direction. If I was to take this particular school as a case in point, we have it all, right? I have a lot of parents saying, you teach CBSE the IB way. I've heard that statement come to us a couple of times. Again, right, the CBSE or the NCERT tells you what needs to be taught. The how of it is what makes the difference.
You can go to a really structure-oriented Cambridge school and kind of lose the good stuff that you were hoping for as well.
Yes, you can. But I think one of the things that I always say is IB is a brilliant curriculum, provided you've got the right quality of teachers. right? Because it's very much student-led.
Yeah.
It comes from the students' willingness to or desire to read about something. Because today, if I'm going to say, okay, pick up 3 books of this author and write a 400 or a 1,000-word essay on what do you see as common, I can pick up any 3 books as a student, right? Therefore, what happens is that the teacher needs to be somebody who really knows this author, and is able to guide the children through that journey. Otherwise, it's going to go south, right? So you really need very high quality teachers to be able to deliver this kind of approach, because it's not limiting, right? It's not, okay, I have to teach
it's very
one
active.
chapter.
Yeah,
I have to teach this chapter, I have to read this chapter, I have to know this chapter and go and teach. It's no longer that.
You've still not given me a kid who can go to CBSE.
All of us are from CBSE, Shiv.
Yeah, because that time I don't think it mattered.
So,
now
no,
it does.
I think today if I was to look at a child, and if you're saying it, you're talking about a traditional CBSE school, you're not talking about a progressive
the majority.
Majority who are going to traditional CBSE schools. All right, a lot of what they are looking at is going forward and taking up competitive exams and becoming doctors and engineers and architects and lawyers and what have you, because the foundation of most of these competitive exams, knowledge-wise, is exam skill and the content that is being taught. And the approach to content.
Which is philosophically aligned with CBSE. There's a set content and you need to get tested on it.
Get tested on it.
Correct.
So you, if that is the direction that your path that your child wants, then that absolutely makes sense. But if I was to look at a child who is a lot more willing to push boundaries, willing to explore, willing to do things on its own, and if I am doing a CBSE, since it's a very template kind of an approach, then I don't need to, I can spend my time learning something else. The challenge to that point will be, you need your 99 and your 100% in CBSE board exams.
Tell me some student stories.
I remember when we had started this school and I was in one of the classrooms, and there was this little tiny tot who was, must have been 3.5, 4 years old. And I was going through their logbook where they do their reflections. So I saw this one big red squiggle scribble over there, and this must have been in the first week of school. So I just sat with her and I said, so what's this? What have you drawn? And she looked at me so offended, and she's, that's the music teacher. So, and I said, oops, sorry. Right?
Nice.
Right? So I said, so why have you drawn the music teacher? She said, I had fun. I had fun, right? And that was it. And for me, it was like, it's so amazing that you have this 3.5-year-old who's able to tell me what was the best part of his or her own day. So that means our children can actually reflect.
Even at that age.
Even at that age. I can tell you another case. So we had some people from the university, one of the UK universities, who had visited us, and we were having this conversation, and we were explaining our entire philosophy and approach and all of that. And we were talking about children setting their own goals. They kept looking at us, very suspiciously, and said, you're talking about grade 6, grade 7 kids, seriously, setting goals? Not going to happen. Yeah. And there were these grade 7 kids who were coming down the stairs, and we said, would you like to speak to them? And they said, you fine with that? We said, yeah, sure. And they just walked up to the kids and they said, we heard something about setting goals. So they said, yeah, we set goals every week. So we said, who sets the goals for you? For you. They just looked at them and said, us.
Yeah.
We set our own goals. Why would anybody else set our goals? Right? And you should have seen the expression on those professors' face. And for me, those were my wow or aha moments, right?
Lovely.
It just validated everything that we are doing.
It goes back to what I was saying earlier, I think a lot of adults just don't trust kids. They just don't see this as a possibility. I think you got to see it to believe it, and then suddenly something, clicks. Thank you so much.
I think this is a very interesting conversation and something that all of you will very much learn from, gain from, and can use. So definitely subscribe to
CBFE.
CBFE. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Definitely. Like the channel and subscribe to it.
Yeah, thank you very much.